So let's learn about enums. Enums in Rust, enumerators. So an enum type, basically it's a special data type that enables for a variable to be a set of predefined constants. What does that mean? Well, it means that you can set up some constants. For example, you can say, here's a variable of a certain type, like hats, and then you can say, there's a soft hat, a large hat, a big hat, a small hat, and they're always going to be predefined. And it's pretty useful because then you can use that information to then set it up, let's say in structures or whatever you're building. So the variable must be equal to one of the values that have been predefined for it, all right, which should make sense. If not, it will make sense when we see it. Common examples include compass directions, so think about that. So north, south, east, west, days of the week, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursdays, types of different things that they're going to be those things. They're always going to be those things. And then you can access to the variable type what that should be. All right, so let's just jump into how that looks. And when you see it, hopefully it'll make sense why it's useful. And we want to print it out. So I'm just going to say, I'm going to do example enum. Okay. It's important to note that the derive attribute makes the enum printable. All right. So again, this is just Rust being Rust. So it's saying, listen, if you're going to do that, bring in the derive debug. Okay. So in order to write that, in order to get the printable format, what we do first is with a number sign. How do I make a number sign? Okay. And we have our square brackets, and we can say derive, and what are we calling from derive? Well, debug. Oh, and debug should actually be uppercase. And now we could let's create an enum. So we get the keyword enum now, and then we can name it. So let's say we have temperature grades. We have different temperatures. So we're gonna say temperature grade, uppercase, good convention. And now we can have different temperature grades. Let's keep this very simple so we can understand the concept. So hot, cold, and medium. All right. There you go. And there's an enum. And so now that we have this, we can then use this for one of our key pair values if we had a structure in which we would want to be monitoring different temperatures. Like let's say we had different cities, right? In a database of cities, and we know that some cities are hot, some cities are cold, and this is going to help us for some kind of weather app. So we could say struct city, and we need let's say we have a key pair value of a name, and we know that a name is going to be a string, and then we have temperature. And temperature is going to be our enum. So we can bring in the enum that we created. And we have to remember, because we're bringing in our enum, that we have to derive debug. Okay, and then now that we've done that, let's actually populate some cities. Let's create some instances of our cities and provide them the enum, provide them some enum values and print them out. So function main. So let's make two cities. We could do C1 is going to be a city, and we're going to do C2. So we got two cities, and they're both going to have brackets. But let's just do one first. So here we can actually do what we do for our structures, which is populate some values. So we're going to say name uppercase string. And since we're doing a default value, we're going to do from, and let's say that the city is going to be Alaska. We're going to comma, and then let's say we want a temperature, so we're going to say temperature. And here we can copy our temperature grade. And now that we're copying our temperature grade, we can actually select from our enums. So it's Alaska. So what do we want Alaska to be? Well, we want it to, we assume it's going to be cold. Let's just say cold. Okay. End of that expression. And we're going to do the same thing for another city, but we'll do a different city. I'll just copy this over. Oops. Let me do that again. Oops. Just being weird here. All right, so we got name and temperature, but this time we're going to take a warm city. So let's say Miami, and Miami will be hot. All right, and we'll end that expression. Okay, and so it's like a three-step process here. We have our enum, right? We create a structure, right? And then we add some values to the structures, some instances, different cities, and we can then access our enum and set up on these predefined constants between hot, cold, and medium. And now if I run this code, console down here, and I scroll to the bottom, we see that warning saying fields name and temperature are never read. And okay, it's morning time. I forgot, like the most important part. We forgot to print it out, right? So we set it all up, but we haven't actually printed it. So let's go ahead and print C1 and C2. So if we want to print, we're going to do print ln. And these are structures. So proper format, we could do C1, and we'll do one for C2. Okay. All right, let's print now. And at the bottom, we see city 1, name Alaska, temperature cold, and another city here, name Miami, temperature hot. All right, and there's the values. There you go. So this is working. Now let me just show you something. What happens if I remove the derive? So let's go ahead and remove one of these derives and run the code again. We're going to get an error because we're not implementing debug. So Rust is saying, hey, make sure that you implement debug. Run it again. All right, so let's stop right there. And hopefully this is making sense to you. And once you feel good going through this, let's actually do an exercise where we'll combine some of the conditional work we've done in the past with enums. So it should be a good way to bridge some of the earlier concepts with some of the newer concepts. All right, I'll see you for the exercise in the next video.